All right, let's talk some college football. Here to break down the 2020 season opener between Oklahoma State and Tulsa. It's the Tulsa World's Bill Haisten and Kelly Hines. Guys, the people at home don't know I was 10 minutes late for this thing, so thank you so much for being gracious. Really appreciate your time today. Looking forward to breaking down this matchup. Kelly, I want to start with you. The big overarching storyline with regard to TU football in preseason has been that 9-day pause that they had to take, COVID-related things. That is difficult to bounce back from. It's unprecedented for this program. What are you hearing with regard to this team's readiness for the 2020 season opener?
I will say, having seen the team scrimmage before the postponement, it was very obvious they were not ready. They needed more time. So it's hard to say exactly where things stand now. But one thing to note, I do think that there have been fewer of the positive test results, at least early in the week. Obviously, those things change pretty rapidly. So in terms of personnel, I think they're in an okay spot. But, as we discussed the other day, I think you never know how the first game is going to go, especially when, you've dealt with all the drama that they've dealt with.
And they are not releasing numbers anymore. We saw with OU, 20 guys were out. Some of that was suspension and injury, but obviously a significant number were COVID. You don't expect something like that, where just one or two guys even have it and the contact tracing results in maybe 9 or 10 TU players being out. At this point, at least they will be tested again tomorrow, which is Friday. You don't expect that to be the case for TU.
I do not expect that to be the case, but how they're doing the testing, having to do 3 tests this week in accordance with the Big 12 policy. I think that they probably got through Monday's round of testing okay. Then, they're tested again Wednesday. Those results, take a day or so to get back. And then they're doing the rapid test results on Friday. So those usually come back in about a couple of hours. So I don't know that coaches really know until, Friday afternoon what they're going to have available.
Bill, any thoughts on that and the 9-day pause for TU, where that leaves them? I mean, obviously, this is like the worst possible matchup on their schedule to be coming out of the gates with. Any thoughts on where TU stands after, what has been obviously for them unprecedented, and, everything in 2020 is unprecedented, but a 9-day pause in the middle of camp is not what you want.
Well, this is the first time in a long time, Caden, that I did not attend a single preseason practice at TU. In fact, I haven't been at TU football practice since right before the shutdown. So I don't pretend to know what it was like in the building in August, but I'm sure there was a point at which Philip, as they got closer to the starting line, where Philip just said, we're not ready, especially from a conditioning standpoint, especially because, they're fairly veteran on offense, and you have the most experienced quarterback in the state was Zach Smith. So I think it seemed to be a far more a conditioning consideration than a game prep consideration. But no, I'm sure he has a lot more peace of mind today than he had before, as they were creeping up on that September 12 date. So no, it was just, they have a good working relationship, these two schools now, Caden. And as I understand it, when TU made the call about possibly bumping to the 19th, that there was no resistance whatsoever from Stillwater, that OSU said, absolutely, of course. Well, they go into this, they lose the open date prior to the start of conference. Oklahoma State does, but I don't think there was really any resistance whatsoever to this change.
And that's pretty remarkable, really. Looking at this OSU team, a season opener always has a coach's stomach in knots. But, man, you look at this roster, and I feel like I know pretty much what you're going to get from almost everybody. What will you be looking for the most? What storyline intrigues you as you look at this OSU team hitting the field for the first time in 2020?
Well, if you think back to July 1st, Caden, you thought you knew really from left tackle across to right tackle. You thought you knew who the personnel would be for Oklahoma State. And you thought that even likely maybe that would be a position group of strength for Oklahoma State. And really, for the first time possibly in about 7 years, a real group of strength for OSU, that they weren't winning games in spite of the offensive line. Well, then they lose during the summer 2 starters. a right guard, and then Dylan Galloway, who would have started at left tackle, opted out because of injuries. He retired from football. So I think the key to the whole season, Caden, for Oklahoma State is how its offensive line performs. Obviously, the progression as a second-year starter of Spencer Sanders is obviously important. But I think if they do get that progression from Sanders in combination with consistently solid offensive line play, not necessarily dominant, because you got enough playmakers that you can work around an adequate offensive line, but they've got to be at least adequate. So against a legitimate opponent in Tulsa, this isn't a Missouri State kind of deal.
Right.
Tulsa will bring bring a test to Stillwater. So that's what I will be watching for, because there was recent seasons, where they would come out like against the Central Arkansas and they couldn't run the football. They had first and goal at the 1 and had to kick a field goal because they couldn't move guys off the snap. So that's what I'll be watching more intently than anything on Saturday, is how the offensive line works together with new personnel on the left side. And, because I do think that they're, I'm hearing from at least one longtime OSU person that this could be OSU's best defense since '84. So
Wow.
if in fact it's let's just say if it is Gundy's best defense in combination with playmakers like Wallace, Hubbard, Sanders, Tay Martin, then I think whether Oklahoma State is a real Big 12 championship contender ultimately centers on what they get up front on offense, on the offensive line.
So one mini follow-up before I go to Kelly. If what you see from the offensive line Saturday is really good, is that enough to begin to elevate what you think the possibilities are for this OSU team, or do you simply need to see them in Big 12 play first?
No, I mean, it'll be a week to week for a while for sure, and really all the way up to, week to week all season, because of what you and Kelly were talking about with regard to test results. That's the great changer in this whole season for everybody, because you can't state with any certainty, Caden, that you're going to have these guys for the whole 10 games, right? It's an impossibility. In fact, it won't happen for anybody. So, no, but yeah, I mean, it'll be a great indicator for sure if they really look up front on offense, if they look really good on opening day. You have to excuse this siren.
I wasn't sure if that was one of Kelly's cats or if that was a siren going. So yeah, okay, we've gotten to the bottom of it.
If the offensive line functions at a nice level on opening day, I think that bodes very well for Oklahoma State to make a real run for the Big 12 championship.
Perfect. Kelly, as I look at this matchup, gosh, I would love to see this thing close. Last year it was close. TU actually had the lead at the half. Just looking at the matchups, I'm a little bit worried. Can you pinpoint a couple that need to go TU's way if they're really going to make a game of this thing into the third or fourth quarter like they did 1 year ago?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of it may come down to the cornerback spots, because that's where TU is pretty solid. I mean, Allie Green the fourth, the Caleb Evans, TU lost Reggie Robinson, to the NFL draft, and they still have basically 2 returning starters at that spot. So, you look back to last year's matchup, other than, I think Wallace had a 90-yard touchdown in the second half, but other than that, he's mostly contained. Obviously, it was Chuba's big day, 250 some yards, 3 touchdowns, scoring on the literal first play of the game. So, I think that trying to contain Wallace, who's obviously an elite receiver, that's going to be a big part of it. But even if you have him contained, I mean, what Chuba can do, that's going to be probably the toughest part of it, because as you mentioned, up front, I think that's probably the biggest question mark on the defense, because you don't really know how those guys are going to fare in a game setting. So, and once Chuba gets to the secondary, that's tough for any team. And I do think that TU has a lot of speed and a lot of capability back there. But that's a really tough assignment. And, OSU's offense can beat you in every possible way, even if you are a good defense.
For sure. Like you mentioned last year, Reggie Robinson drew a couple of penalties trying to cover Wallace, but he hung in there so well. I think if the corners can do, if they can replicate that, if it looks like that where Wallace at least has to earn it, and some of those other OSU receivers as well, you would feel really good about TU's corners coming out of this thing, regardless of what the numbers are. There's a lot of experience coming back on offense, and a lot of the guys on defense who haven't even necessarily been full-time starters have at least seen the field. Are there one or two guys that you're really looking forward to seeing that you just haven't seen very much? They're guys who are coming up in a new position, either starting or just being relied upon that you're really looking forward to seeing on Saturday.
We saw some of Contender Ray last year, but for Philip Montgomery to say, I think he has a chance to be the best safety who's ever played here.
Right.
I mean, when you start hearing things like that, you're like, maybe this guy's going to be pretty good. So I don't know how much that will be revealed in this game, because as we mentioned, it's a tough assignment, but he's somebody I'm definitely watching, as the season progresses. He's someone who's played very well in practice. And then, Colin Wick, stepping into Travis Gibson's role, those are big shoes to fill. And he obviously is a different style than Travis was, but I know that they're very high on him and his potential. So those are probably some guys to watch. Obviously, we know about, Zaven Collins and everything he brings to the table, but there are some other guys that, we haven't thought a whole lot about.
I can't tell you how happy I am about this. I was wondering when one of those cats was going to make it onto a Zoom call with you. There it is. What's this kitty's name?
This is Benny. He just woke up. I don't know.
Highlight of our preview right here. Hey, Benny. All right. That was a good answer, actually, with the cat crawling into your lap and everything. Bill? Casey Dunn, first game as offensive coordinator. Mike Gundy keeps telling us that it's the same Actually, Mike Gundy said in the Zoom call that Mike Leach stole his offense, which is complete bull. I have no idea where he's getting that from, or what he's trying to communicate with that. But okay, whatever. He says it's his offense, and Casey Dunn's not going to change a thing. I'm just wondering, what are you expecting, or maybe what are you interested to follow with regard to, I don't know, run pass balance, or just any way in which he can put his fingerprints on this offense?
I don't think if the offensive line is at least adequate, okay, then you won't be able to discern one degree of difference between this offense and the 2019 offense. Not one bit. Not with this personnel, right? Why would you change it up? First, let me say this real quick too. I am told that Chuba Hubbard is more healthy today than he was at any point last season, including on opening day. He was able to he had a lingering issue all season last year. So if he can get a 2,000-yard season out of a lingering issue and he goes in healthy this year, we'll see how that looks. But no, I don't think Caden, I don't expect it to look one bit different unless they can't block people, in which case you would see, I would think, more of an attempt to take advantage of Spencer Sanders' mobility. More run game and more moving pocket. You know what I mean? But if they can block at a decent level or a dynamic level, then no, not one bit different. The real difference really with the coordinator switch is that for the first time, Mike Gundy has a coordinator who does not coach the quarterbacks, right? So the real difference is happening in the day-to-day in the practice facility, not on Saturday. So, but Gundy really seems to like the new quarterbacks coach, Tim Route. And so, no, I don't think you'll see a bit of difference. Ultimately, with new personnel as they cycle in, I would think Casey Dunn will have his fingerprints on things, but not this year, or not with these guys.
All right. Predictions are tricky when two in-state teams are involved. And I got in trouble for saying this on a radio show a few years ago, I think the 2017 game, that I'm not saying I root for TU in these spots, but I root for a good game. And because they are a 23-point underdog, you know what I mean? You're kind of just pulling for them to keep this thing close. How do you think this thing plays out, Bill? These are all best guesses, first game of the year and everything. But is the prediction pain, as Mr. T said in Rocky III? Is that what you see?
Well, one characteristic of Gundy's better teams is
and teams had to face almost all of them, but
it's crazy. You're right.
Yeah.
The way that has fallen. But they've always had an ability to score in flurries. They you know what I mean? They'll score 4 touchdowns in 5 possessions, and and separate. They've done that for a long time. So I can see that happening Saturday. And I can see a 51-24 kind of a final score that is misleading as all get out. You know what I'm saying? So I think Oklahoma State will move the football and score points. I don't think his Zach Smith offense is going to get just completely. It's not going to look anything like Michigan State last year. OSU will. I mean, Tulsa will have some success, and you know, it's just a really super tough opener for Tulsa to go against, like you say, one of the top 3 or 4 offenses in the country, without any spring practice, with a disrupted preseason, with all the crap going on with regard to just the attempt to get a team on the field. So I guess that's my score prediction, 51-24,
yeah.
but kind of a misleading 51-24. And to be honest, I can't wait to watch Tulsa play Saturday, but man, next week at Arkansas State, that's a ball game now. I'm really, really looking forward to that one.
Hopefully there's still a bit of a hangover from the Kansas State win, and they're battling COVID. They had to cancel their game this week. Kelly, I was a bit surprised to see of their 10 games on the schedule, ESPN's FPI had TU as a favorite in 6 of them. That was changed after Navy looked so bad on opening day against BYU. So TU, it's kind of front-loaded, this schedule, more than maybe even we realized coming in. They could have a great season, but really struggle Saturday. You know, if asked for a prediction, how do you think this thing plays out?
I see it to be a little bit closer, maybe like 45-28, somewhere in that range. I do think that Tulsa will have some success on offense. It's just going to be really difficult to match what OSU is going to be able to do, you know, and unless TU's defense is just really able to get some incredible stops, that's going to be difficult. So, you know, I'm super intrigued to see, you know, how this offense looks for Tulsa. It just, you know, okay, we're back. It's going to be hard to base anything on, you know, if it does get out of hand, it's going to be difficult to base a lot on that, because I do think that there are quite a few winnable games on the schedule. It just, you know, probably not this one.
Guys, thank you so much for your time. I apologize again for being late. That was awful, but I'm glad Benny could make an appearance, and glad you guys could inform us on what's going to happen Saturday in this most unprecedented of college football seasons and openers. Thank you.
Kelly, is Benny available for adoption?
Yes, he is. Thank you for asking.
You know what? This is going online. I'll put a little graphic up. Tell us how.
SapulpaFurryFriends.org. He's about a week or 2 from being able to go home, so he'd be up for like pre-adoption. So people can fill out an application for him. He's super sweet. He is going to be a lap cat for sure.
Awesome.
Look at that face.
Exactly. All right. Thank you guys so much for your time. I apologize for taking up a bunch of it. Thank you.
All right, Caden. See you Saturday.
Yeah.